Indy Mogul.
Hey Indy Mogulers, Russell here. One thing I love to do is tell stories of film shoots gone wrong. Why the ones that went wrong? Because you learn a lot from them. And one thing you learn when trying to be a filmmaker is that more projects are going to fall through than actually come to fruition. So today, as I am looking forward to starting my next short film project, I look back on the first time I ever attempted to do something on a larger scale, and that would be all the way back in 2004 for a story I like to call The Tale of Half Past One. So it's 2004. I had just received my first really good camera, the Sony VX2100, a 3CCD camera, which was pretty top of the line at the time. I had been working with my directing partner Chad Newhall for a couple years at that point. We had this really good camera, so we're like, let's do something bigger. We remembered this project that had been started a few years before by a rival group in Brick, New Jersey, Corner Pocket Productions. Not really rivals. It was just weird at the time to have two groups of filmmakers in one area. It's pre-YouTube. They had tried to make this movie called Half Past One. It was a screenplay written by two people. One was Ab, who you may remember from the Movie Quest days, and another guy who doesn't come off looking great in the story, so for the purposes of not embarrassing him, we'll just call him Bilbo. You can see in this shot why we call him that.
Fantastic.
He's a little hobbit. It was a relatively simple script too, because it just involved a group of college kids and them going to a frat party, getting drunk, getting into trouble. We liked it enough, it was pretty good. And we got to meet Bilbo, who was very enthusiastic about our involvement. He had seen our movies before and thought, oh yeah, these are the guys who can make this movie happen. And the three of us started hanging around a lot. It was me, Chad, and Bilbo. So we really started putting a lot more effort into this than we normally would have. First thing we did was start trying to get our locations together. We needed something to be the frat house where the party was taking place. We needed a convenience store. We needed a liquor store. Bilbo knew somebody who was part of a frat. They were going to be having a frat party, and they said that we could actually come in there and shoot amongst the party. So we went and we looked at the place and it looked good, and I was feeling pretty confident at that point. The liquor store scene was the only scene that had actually been shot and finished the first time it was attempted, and we were going to use the same place. The owner was totally cool with it, so we were going to be shooting there again. And then for the convenience store, we found this one that's still right down the road from me, a nice little mom and pop convenience store, and the guy was very enthusiastic about working with us. He was happy to have us there. Everything was going great at this point. We had the locations, we were like, all right, step one down, we're all set, now let's go cast. A few of the roles now were already filled by actors who had tried to do it the first time. There was one actor named Brian that Bilbo was very insistent have this one role of one of the main characters, so that one we already knew was filled. For the other parts though, there were maybe 4 or 5 college-age kids we needed to cast. We actually ended up meeting with some producers to talk about that, the main guy of which was Jason Allentoff, who to this day is one of my best friends and was even one of my groomsmen. He suggested that we run an ad in Backstage magazine to get actors for a casting call. Now this is where things started to go wrong. The ad was placed to hold our auditions, and we got maybe 20 to 30 actors and actresses who said that they would show up and were interested in the role, so we were really excited about that. So the day came, we got to the courthouse, we were shooting behind the scenes footage, and this is the only tape I have left from that entire experience, but some behind the scenes footage of us getting ready to do the auditions, and the time came for people to start showing up. Nothing. We sat there for hours. Nobody showed up, and we had no idea why.
Can you use that camera there to take stills from it?
That one? Yeah.
Cool.
One woman showed up after we had been there for maybe 3 hours, and she was really nice, but she was like mid-30s, and we were casting for a college-age role, and it wasn't gonna happen. And in the end, she was the only one who showed up. I didn't find out until years later why that was. It turns out, oh, I accidentally said his name. Bilbo insisted that he be the one to write up the ad and send it in. He didn't want anybody to look at it. He insisted that he be the one to take care of it. Nobody had to look at it. That was a mistake. I couldn't remember the exact details, so I gave Jason a call. This week's episode was actually supposed to be an interview with him about his filmmaking experience, but we're pushing that to next week. But at least he was available by phone. I've been calling him Bilbo because I don't want to say his real name, and we always just called him a hobbit.
Okay. Well, Mr. Baggins himself, I went to great lengths to get the township, that I'm not going to mention the name, to let us use the room. And even the little janitor opened it up for us. We were sitting there waiting, and we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and nobody showed up. I then find out that in the advertisement he placed, in Backstage Magazine and online, he had the wrong date. He had the following weekend listed. But the township wouldn't let us come back the following weekend.
How that one woman knew it was that day, I'll never know. So we had to resort to casting friends again. Bilbo actually got in touch with another actor from the city without ever having auditioned him or anything, and he was like, yeah, sure. So we got one real actor. I can't speak to his acting talents or anything because we never got to shoot any scenes with him, but, well, I'll get to that. First day of shooting comes. Things went fine. We had to shoot some driving scenes. Easy stuff. Seemed like a good start to everything. Those ended up being the only scenes we ever actually shot for the movie. Because the next place we had to shoot at was the liquor store. And we all showed up. The actor came down from New York. The rest of us and any crew we could get together out of our friends came, and we were all set to shoot those scenes. And the liquor store owner didn't show up. We ended up just sitting in that parking lot for a couple hours, and then nothing happened, and we had to all go home, had to send the actor on his way.
Alright, I'm not discouraged because at least it will happen.
We're backing up.
I am of the same feeling, and I'll feel a lot better once I get a beer in there.
So that was deflating, but the worst part came the next night when we had to shoot some more scenes driving, this time with the actor Brian, who Bilbo insisted be in this movie, if you remember. Everybody shows up to the location where we need to be, and again, we don't hear anything. Everybody's there except for Brian, and he's the main guy in this. After waiting at the location for about 3 hours, finally my cell phone rings, and it's Brian. And I hear a hushed voice, and he says, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to make it. I'm not gonna be able to be in the movie. I just started a new job today, and I was just able to get away for a few minutes so that I can make this call, but I gotta get back in there, but I can't be in your movie. Okay, so now I tell this to Bilbo and I say, I have my friend, he's willing to take over this part. Let's just get him, let's shoot these scenes and continue on making this movie. And his response was, nah, man. That's how he talked. Nah, man, it's a sign, man. This movie, it's cursed. We're not going to be able to do this. Let's just call the whole thing off. We're like, no, we can make this happen. No, man. So, movie fell apart. Never got to do this. We had been preparing for a couple months at that point, but it was his script and I was young and I was just like, oh, okay, well, it's your script. If you say it's not going to get made, then, well, I guess it's not going to get made. Now we had to let all the locations know that we weren't going to be able to shoot there, and I let the convenience store owner know. And for the convenience store owner, he was a cool enough guy that Chad and I actually showed up in person and said, look, here's the deal, this is what's going on. We'd still like to be able to get this project up and going again in the future, so, you know, would we be able to use it? Oh, no problem. Dealing with you guys has been a pleasure, and anytime you need this place as a location, you just let me know. He said for anything, so that was good to know. Like, Chad and I were still making a lot of short videos, and it was nice to know, hey, we can use this place as a location if we ever need to, and that was great, because at the time we really had very few places we could actually shoot. Then I get a call, and it was the owner of the convenience stores a few days later, and he basically said he never wanted to see any of us again, that he can't believe how disrespectful we were. As it turns out, Bilbo went back in himself, and we still don't know what he said, but whatever he said pissed him off so bad that we were banned from his store. We eventually had a falling out with him like less than a year later, and we stopped dealing with him, which was definitely for the best. Now, the important thing to remember from any film failure is that you always take something away from it. It's important to always learn something. Remember that. You are going to fail at some point as a filmmaker to get a project off the ground. It's just the way it goes. In Hollywood, most projects don't make it past the early development stages. But you always take something away from that. For me, I was a young filmmaker. What I think I learned most from it was the pre-production process. And I also made some very good connections. I still work with Jason on things. And when it was working, it was a great experience. We got to know, at least for a very brief time, what it was like to work on a project that wasn't just getting together with a few friends, coming up with an idea really quick, shooting it and being done with it in a day. We got to know what it was like to plan something out, and it was a lot of fun. And from that point on, we did end up putting a lot more time and effort into our future projects. Most of them. Not all of them. Some of you more experienced filmmakers out there have probably had some spectacular failures of your own, so in the comments below, let us know about any projects that you had that fell apart, how they fell apart, and most importantly, what did you take away from that? What did you learn that you could put towards future projects?
Mr. Baggins himself, I hope I don't ever have to see him again. Knowing him for those couple of months that I did, it was enough. He doesn't make me as angry as some other people that we've worked with before, and I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a whole...
I'm just gonna say, but...
That's a whole nother thing for another episode.
That's another episode,